I am Shafiqah.
Hi, I am Yunira.
Hi, I'm Khamillia.
Hello, I am Aqil Ikhwandi.
Hello, I am Ali. Greetings to Madam Swahilati and to all my fellow classmates. Our group will be giving enlightenment on the topic of environmental cost-benefit analysis. Environmental cost-benefit analysis refers to the economic appraisal of policies and projects that have the deliberate aim of improving the provision of environmental service or actions that might affect the environment as an indirect consequence. Vital advances have arisen in response to the challenge that environmental problems and environmental policy pose for the environmental cost-benefit analysis. Environmental cost is the cost that an organization incur to prevent, monitor, and report environmental impacts, and the cost of failing to comply with environmental regulations. Environmental cost is also defined as costs that associated with the creation, detection, remediation, and prevention of environmental degradation. Therefore, environmental costs are classified into 4 categories, which are prevention costs, appraisal costs, internal failure costs, and external failure costs. Environmental benefit is the benefit enjoyed by the organization from the action taken to reduce the impact on the environmental pollution. Environmental cost-benefit analysis is related to how the management handle the environmental costs and benefit that arise because of the business operation. The information in environmental cost-benefit analysis is crucial for the company commitment to sustainability, since it may influence the product and cost estimation. Okay, now Ms. Khamillia will tell us more on the purpose of environmental cost-benefit analysis.
Thank you so much, Muhammad Ali. Assalamualaikum to all. My name is Khamillia and I shall now continue with my part of the presentation. Okay, now we will look at the purposes of having this environment cost-benefit analysis. There are 3 purposes. Firstly, it helps to ensure the companies in Malaysia comply with the regulations set out by the authorities, in which this will be further explained by Aqil later. Second, it is used to assess the feasibility of a certain project, whether the benefits will outweigh the costs, and this helps the company in deciding which project they should proceed with. And lastly, this helps to encourage companies in conserving and also improving the environment by supporting the Go Green campaigns. This is important as you want to ensure that the lives of our future generations are secured, as they will be the most affected by our actions. Therefore, it is important for us to be responsible towards our environment. Okay, now so let's move on to the next part, which is the 5 tiers of environmental costs. Environmental costs can be defined as the costs that are linked to the actual or potential deterioration of natural assets which are due to the economic activities. And this information vary and depend on how the company uses it. For example, the company may use it to monitor, to prevent, and also to report on any environmental impact which were caused by the economic activities. The 5 tiers of environmental costs consist of conventional costs, hidden costs, contingent costs, relationship and image costs, and lastly, societal costs. We'll now look at each of the costs one by one. So the first tier is conventional costs. Conventional cost is the direct cost that may give a significant impact on the environment, and there is no doubt that most organizations actually have this in their accounting system. Examples of conventional costs includes electricity, fuel, and also gas. These 3 are very common and widely used in the production of any product. For instance, oil and natural gases, which are non-renewable resources that are used in our everyday products, such as lipstick and deodorant. So, for the second tier of environmental costs will be explained by Aqil. So, I shall now pass to the next presenter.
Thank you so much to Nur Khamillia. So now let's move on to the second tier of the environmental costs, which are the hidden costs. So these costs are the ones that are unforeseen but you might incur in the future. For example, if you buy a car or a fridge, you might have to incur maintenance costs in the future if they break down. So this is not included in the purchase price, so it is a hidden cost. Now, let's move on to a larger scale of these hidden costs. So I would like to take the fast fashion industry, which overproduces a lot of clothes which are low in quality, so they could be sold for cheap prices. With that, their consumers will buy these products and then not use them for so long and then buy another one. So this cycle keeps repeating, and it ends up accumulating a lot of textiles and fabric in the landfills, which causes further pollution. With that, when pollution happens, it will affect the environment negatively. It will affect our health as humans and also the animals and the quality of soil, right? So in order to rectify this, there is a lot of costs that need to be incurred to restore back our health and also the environment. With that, that is the hidden cost of the fast fashion industry. So that is all from me on the hidden cost, and now I would like to invite Nurul Shafiqah to explain on the third tier of the environmental cost.
Thank you, Aqil. I am Shafiqah, and now let us see at the third tier, which is the contingent cost. It is a cost that's set aside at the start of the project in case of need to cover estimate uncertainty and risk exposure in the project. The risk and the contingent costs have a directly proportional relationship where the higher the risk, the higher the contingent cost. The example of contingent cost is the cost of remedying or compensation for future accidental release of substances into the environment. Now let us see the fourth tier, which will be explained by Muhammad Ali.
Thank you to Shafiqah. Now let us proceed with the relationship cost and image cost. Relationship cost and image cost is also called as corporate image and relationship cost. It reflects perception of various stakeholders which are rarely measured in standard information system and are difficult to measure objectively. It comprises of less tangible cost and benefit that relates to consumers' perception and employee and community relations. The cost incurred is often voluntarily for environmental activities only. For example, the cost of annual environmental reports and community relations activities, as well as costs incurred voluntarily for environmental, are typically included. Because of the direct benefits that emerge from the relationship or image costs are tangible. Okay, the first four tiers are referred to as private costs because they are environmental expense that have direct impact on an organizational profit or for which an organization can be held legally liable. Now let us hear from Yunira.
Now, moving on to the last 5 tiers of environmental cost, which is the societal cost. It is the cost that organizations impose on others, such as the environment and society, for which they may not be held legally responsible and which cannot be compensated for in the legal system. In other words, it is the cost related to the working of the firm, but is not explicitly borne by the firm. Instead, it is the cost to the society due to the production of commodity. For example, the factory is located in the city, discharging its waste into the river, in which contaminating the water, thereby causing water pollution. Thus, the societal costs include the cost of natural resources, which the firms are not required to pay, such as river or lake, and also the use of public utility services, such as drainage system and roadways. Moving on to the next slide, which is on the environmental quality cost. So, under Total Quality Management TQM philosophy, quality control is an ongoing activity throughout the entire process cycle, where it focuses on understanding the causes of problems and seek to reduce or eliminate their impact in the most cost-effective manner. Therefore, only after environmental costs have been defined, identified, and allocated, business now can begin the task of trying to control them. Waste or pollution can be viewed as inefficiency or defect within a process that result in poor environmental performance for a company. Therefore, by using the same concept of TQM in the environmental area, companies may be able to shift away the expenditures from remediation toward efforts to prevent environmental problems from ever occurring or reducing its impact. There are 4 types of environmental quality costs, which are the internal failure costs, external failure costs, appraisal costs, and prevention costs, which I will further explain. Firstly is the internal failure cost. It is the cost of eliminating environmental impacts that have been created by the organization. Or in other words, is the cost of activities that have to be performed when contaminants and waste have been produced by the company but not discharged into the environment. For example, like treating toxic waste and maintaining pollution equipment, and also cost of occupational health and safety claim. Next is the external failure cost. This is the cost incurred after environmental damage has been caused outside the organization, or it is simply the cost incurred by a company if it discharges its waste into the environment. For example, like cost of cleaning up oil spills or cleaning a polluted river. A company may also incur fines or other penalties or lose sales if it acquires a poor environmental reputation, which is also part of the external failure cost. The third one is appraisal cost. It is the cost of assessing compliance with environmental policies, or also known as the cost of activities performed by monitor environmental effects that a firm is responsible for, by monitoring the level of environmental impacts and include measuring damage, inspecting processes and products, and auditing supplier performance. It also includes the costs arising from inspection of products and contamination testing. And lastly, the prevention cost. It is costs associated with preventing adverse environmental impact or cost of activities performed to prevent the production of waste that could cause damage to the environment, such as cost of recycling product, training staff, carrying out environmental studies, as well as cost of installing environmentally responsible equipment. That's all from me. I will pass this to the next presenter, Nurul Shafiqah. Thank you.
Thank you, Yunira. Now let us go deeper in the environmental cost-benefit analysis. It is an application of cost-benefit analysis to project or policies that have the deliberate aim of environmental improvement or actions that somehow affect the natural environment as an indirect consequences. This requires understanding what the option provided in the project in terms of benefits, which is defined as increases in human well-being, and costs, which is defined as the reductions in human well-being. Although it sounds simple enough, some way must be found to aggregate environmental and social benefits and costs across different people, which is within a given geographical boundary, and finding some means of monetizing this, accounting for different points in time when the impacts occur. Next, let us move on to the 4 important steps in environmental cost benefit, which are step number 1, specifying clearly the project or program. Step number 2, describe quantitatively and qualitatively the inputs and outputs of the project. Step number 3, estimate the social costs and benefit of these inputs and outputs. And lastly, step number 4, compare this benefit and costs arise from the project. So, in the step 1, which is specifying clearly the project or program, it is where the employee make a decision on main elements of the project or programs. The example of the main elements such as the location, timing, who are the group involved, and the connection with other program. When the project is fixed, 2 programs will be involved, which are the physical project and regulatory project. So, physical project is a project which are physical in nature, which is done when an area is polluted. The example of physical projects are public waste treatment plants and beach restoration project. On the other hand, regulatory project implies the enforcement of environmental law and regulation such as pollution standard and water disposal practice. This project regulates the amount of pollution in the society. Now let us see the second step, which is to determine the relevant force of input and output of the project, where these steps will help the company to determine the cost, input and output of the project. Now let's proceed with the third step, which is to estimate the social cost and benefit of the input and outputs. It is the step to put values on input and output flow by measuring the costs and benefits. It is usually measured in monetary form, as we are to translate all the impact in order to make them comparable among themselves and other type of public activities. Lastly, the fourth step is to compare this benefit and cost arise from the project. It is where we can look into the net benefit of the project. The net benefit is derived by subtracting the total cost from the total benefit. So if the net benefit is positive, then the cost benefit is positive. And if the net benefit is negative, then the cost benefit is negative. I think that is all from me, and I will pass the presentation to the next presenter, Khamillia.
Thank you so much, Shafiqah, for passing back the presentation to me. So moving on to the next part of the presentation, I shall now present on the advantages and also disadvantages of having this environmental cost and benefit analysis. So knowing these two pieces of information is very important, because with that, only then the company is able to analyze properly and also give appropriate judgments. Okay, for the first advantage is that it helps to increase the profitability of the company, and this can be done by the managers, where they are forced to look into the revenues and also expenses that may be generated from the certain project that they want to invest in. And the analysis can help them greatly, as it helps to evaluate whether the benefits will outweigh the costs, and from this they will make decisions whether they want to proceed or not with the project. Next, it also helps to improve the reputation of the company, as some customers may prefer to support businesses that are concerned about the environmental impact that they give. And personally speaking, I love going to Starbucks, and I normally would bring my cup, my own Starbucks tumbler along with me, because not only that I'm able to enjoy a great cup of coffee, but I can also enjoy touring it off whenever I bring in my own Starbucks tumbler. And at the same time, I am also able to help to reduce the plastic waste. And so this initiative done by Starbucks can actually keep me coming, because this gives a very good impression that Starbucks is very concerned about the impact that they give to the environment. And last but not least, it may also help to improve the sustainability of the company. When the company is aware of the impact that they give towards the environment, they will be less likely to fully depend on natural resources. For example, the company may opt for other renewable sources of energy, such as by using the solar power for their sources of electricity or energy. Okay, now moving on to the disadvantages of having this cost and benefit analysis. So firstly, it is time consuming. It is time consuming for companies that are only starting to implement this in their business, and the managers need some time to brainstorm and think whether it will work or not for the company, and this requires a lot of time for them to actually implement and also enforce it in the business. Next, company may also fail to account for important financial concerns in the long run, because companies that are interested to implement this type of analysis, it is important for them to note that it is not only being focused on entirely on the financial cost. There are also other qualitative factors that are being focused on, and in the long run, companies may fail to account for this important financial concerns such as inflation, interest rate, varying cash flows, and also present value of money. And lastly, it may be difficult for small businesses to actually implement this because this type of analysis requires a continuous and systematic approach to be implemented, and they may not have the required resources to actually conduct this in their business. And I guess that's all from me. I shall now pass on to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nur Khamillia. So now let's move on to the next part of our presentation, which is the environmental law and the examples from the industry, both good and bad. Alright, so before we dive in further on the environmental laws, let me enlighten all of you on how the environmental laws come to its start. So, in the 1970s, there were high amounts of pollution until even the rivers caught fire. The smokes actually killed people and animal species were being hunted to extinction, and there was a general disregard to human health. With that, this leads to the creation of the Clean Water Act to keep the sea swimmable and the Clean Air Act to keep the air breathable. Following the acts, the National Environment Policy Act also emerged, which requires for the first time ever serious consideration of the environmental impacts before taking any action. With that, the Environmental Protection Agency also emerged to promote and spread this idea throughout the world. With that, this follows more emergence of new acts such as waste management and other acts we have available today. Now let us move on to the environmental acts available in Malaysia. So as we all know, Malaysia is very rich in its natural resources. So with that, the government is very serious in protecting the sustainability of our resources. So we can see that the Malaysian government has been working in line with some of the international environmental principles, such as the precautionary principles, the environmental impact assessments, and also the English common law principles to govern the environmental development and conservation. Following this, as you can see on your screen right now, Malaysia has done a lot of legislation to work for the environmental development. So of course, these legislations are inspired by the international legislations but has been adopted to better suit the specific problems that are faced in the locality of Malaysia. Now, let us proceed with the examples from the industry, and let us start with the good examples with Crave Beauty. So Crave Beauty is a skincare company that takes sustainability very seriously. With that, when trying to come up with the latest product, the Oh So Simple Water Cream, they had a lot of options when choosing a sustainable packaging. With that, their customers actually wanted to have a glass packaging because out of all individual materials, glass is the most sustainable one because it can be recycled indefinitely. However, after Crave Beauty did a lot of research for the options of its packaging, they actually chose a type of plastic which is polyethylene terephthalate, or PET for short, which is a recyclable plastic. So it did get a lot of heat from its customers because the customers wanted glass. However, Crave Beauty explained that if they were going for glass, it would be heavy. With that, when it is heavy, they will need a lot of transport power for them to ship their products worldwide because they ship internationally. With that, if they use something lighter, which is PET, they would not be releasing a lot of emissions when compared to when they are using a heavy material like glass. So when we take a look at these materials individually, of course, the glass is more sustainable than PET. However, PET is still a recyclable form of plastic. When considering everything, the situation of Crave Beauty being need to transport this product internationally to its customers, in the long run, if they use PET, which will release less emissions, they will contribute less pollution. So with that, the environmental benefit of polluting less will outweigh the environmental cost of them using PET over glass. Now let us move on to a bad example, and I would like to divert your attention to Starbucks. So in 2018, Starbucks joined a movement to ban single-use plastic straws and announcing it will be eliminating its straws by 2020. So with that, Starbucks has actually changed its straw and lid to a strawless lid. So this might seem good that they've been using before this. So although the difference might be quite small and it's just a lid, however, it will quickly add up considering Starbucks' enormous scale. We all know how big Starbucks is, right? So of course, Starbucks actually claimed that the lid is made out of more sustainable plastic, which is polypropylene. However, only 9% of the world's plastic is recycled. So this means that there is a big chance of the majority of the lids will not be recycled anyway. So with that, we can see that the environmental cost outweighs the environmental benefits, as in the end of the day, they are actually using much more plastic. Now let's move on to another example, which is a bad one from H&M. So H&M has a green line which is called H&M Conscious, and it is actually made from organic cotton as claimed by the company. However, did you know that in order to make one product from cotton, the cotton actually needs 20,000 liters of water for it to grow and be made into that product? So do you think that a product that requires a lot of our resources, which is 20,000 liters of water, actually sustainable? In addition, H&M is also a part of the fast fashion industry, which I have explained just now in the hidden cost, which actually leads to a lot of textiles in landfills. So unless H&M actually changes its business model being in the fast fashion industry, no matter what they do, the environmental cost of the pollution from the fast fashion industry itself will not outweigh any of their efforts into making environmental benefits, as their business model itself contributes a lot of pollution to the environment. So that is actually all from me. Now I shall pass the floor to my friend Muhammad Ali for the conclusion.
Thank you, Aqil, for the wonderful information. To summarize, improving environmental management doesn't always have to be expensive. It is often related to behavior and use of existing equipment more efficiently. Today's corporate environment is characterized by rapid and increasingly diverse economic growth. The demand on various natural resources in several industries aided this economic development. Concerns about human health have greatly influenced environmental policy, and international trade has prompted firms to develop rules to ensure their long-term viability. To be an environmentally friendly organization, the corporation should spend more of its money on the 4 categories of environmental expenses, namely prevention, appraisal, internal failure, and external failure costs. Environmental cost management is commonly regarded as causes of additional costs in the corporate sector. As a result, one of the most significant challenges for quality practitioners is identifying environmental and sustainability issues that serve the interests of stakeholders and taking steps to help solve the problems. Furthermore, the 5 tiers of environmental costs, which is traditional costs, hidden costs, contingent costs, relationship and image costs, and societal costs, must be also considered. This is portrayed by craft beauty efforts in performing extensive research in choosing the packaging option to protect the environment while conducting business, set a good example for the other business. That is all from us. Thank you and have a nice day.